Unheard.
Hello and welcome. This is episode 5 of Unheard, and we have yet again a really cool guest with us, uh, inviting Meenakshi. And she is the founder of Puvidham, an excellent educator, very well known in the alternate education circles, and a very recent friend, somebody who I met very recently. And of course, it's been an honor and a privilege. So, Meenakshi, thank you for humoring us and coming today.
Thank you.
Meenakshi has, of course, has very first-hand experience and a much longer experience than any of us at the PI has had in creating a learning space, in working with children, in working with communities and families. And today's topic is quite an interesting one, something that has uh, has always brought um, curiosity to the education space in all the different levels, from children to their parents, to teachers, to governments, to large institutions. And that's the idea that education is the solution to all problems. That if more people went to schools, we will end up solving all these problems that we see around us. And this is a very interesting thought because one could argue that looking at it historically, maybe that has not happened. On another side, somebody might say, no, this has happened. We are economically more forward than ever before. So this is a bit of a tug of war. It is something that we are all still trying to grapple with or try to understand, that is education ultimately the solution to problems, or has it actually helped some of the problems become worse or exacerbate? Where do we, how do we understand this? Right? So, I mean, actually, I'll just start us off with what do you think about this idea, about the promises that education makes, and how did you experience it as a child? Especially, I think that's a good place to start. That how did you experience this sort of promise of education as a child yourself?
Yes. So, to go back to my own personal journey, I was a rebel at school, and I could not take the silent sitting on the bench itself was the most difficult task for me. I was a very active child, and so I was most often outside because I couldn't sit inside. I was always very agitated, and that gave me a chance to actually see education from outside because I wasn't inside. So I could see what it is doing to friends of mine who are inside. And very early in life, I kind of arrived at a conclusion. In fact, in my case, it was a complete conclusion, though I had no substantiated study or anything. I just concluded that actually education was the problem that we had in society right then and there. And what I felt, and I still feel, is that education actually limits us rather than expands us. If we are talking about the present education system, because actually that is not really uh, educating us, it is just training us to conform in the present existing society. I don't think we can call the present system of schooling as an education system. That is itself a wrong definition, if you ask me. And as I grew up, I saw that all the ills in society kind of went back to what attitudes and fears the education system, so called education system, instills in us as children. So, what I felt and what I still feel is that the way the schools are run and the kind of so-called syllabus that is followed, and all the different methods that we talk about, including the alternative methods, which are supposed to be more child friendly and everything, are all aimed at making the child to conform. And that I feel is not a proper definition for education, because education should mean uh, an ability to look at things critically and root out things which are not needed anymore. So I feel
Very interesting.
we
Yeah.
need to rethink education.
Yes. Um, how did you experience this conformity? That for me, for example, um, the conformity was sort of supported as an ideology at home, by saying things like, you know, um, follow the system, follow, give the exams, struggle, miss a few birthday parties, and hanging out with friends, be a little unhappy today, and then tomorrow, when you have succeeded in education and thereby you have succeeded in getting a job, you will finally have all the freedom and happiness you need. And so this was the carrot dangling in front of me, to ensure that I am conforming, that I am not falling out of line, so to speak. Um, how did you see for yourself, or maybe for others who you were noticing, your other friends? Um, what was the justification for this conformity? Because children do ask, right? They are going to be curious that why do I have to do this?
True. So, yes, I guess what you said, it is often uh, the picture of a happy, settled life that is, presented as the incentive to continue our so-called schooling. I was lucky in a way that my parents, both my parents, were first generation learners. In fact, my mom did go beyond her fifth. And they both knew the value of childhood as it is. Childhood is a space of inquiry, a space of constructing the world inside ourselves. And so we were lucky that my father and mother, they never focused on getting marks or competing. They said it's a necessary evil, you have to go to school. We don't care about anything except that you just keep moving. Otherwise, if you get stuck in any class, then it means just you have to do more years of the same shit. So the only incentive for us that was presented is just get to the next class. So I guess that gave us a lot of space to be with ourselves, to be able to look at everything from a very critical point of view. And it also made sure that this conformist picture, which everybody is presented with, was not presented to us till we were, I think, till I was in the eighth. I was about 14. Nobody told me any day that you have to study. And literally, I didn't know even my basics. I couldn't even properly read and write. So, and I used to just get by push and shove and somehow get promoted into the next class. And when I was in the when I finished my eighth and I was going to come to the ninth, my father said, "Look, childhood is over." So, and he said, "Now you have to take responsibility for whatever it is that you're doing, and you can decide if you don't want to, continue the schooling. That's fine. We'll give you 2 years time to take your, uh, choices forward. And if that doesn't happen, then by the time you're finishing your 10th, and if you're not going to, if you decide that you don't want to continue in the same direction of schooling and all that, we can happily get you settled and married and stuff like that." So for me, that was the incentive. Okay, I don't want to get tied down and married.
Yeah.
So thoda sa pad lete hain. Let us just make an attempt to get through this system so that you don't get trapped in something else. So that was the incentive. And I felt that giving me the responsibility of taking this schooling, though I didn't believe in it, though he didn't believe in it, as a necessary evil, staying away from it. And that means not getting formatted, but having to go through the system. I think that is what really helped in allowing me to think freely and to evolve as a human being. I
Yeah,
don't think many children get that space nowadays. Nowadays,
yeah,
it's too tight. From
yeah,
pre-KG, they are into exams. So
yeah,
I think that is the major difference that I saw. And my friends, they were trapped, whereas I wasn't trapped. I was going through it because I had to go through it, but I didn't see that as a means to an end at all.
yeah. I think that does make a huge difference as to what degree do you subscribe to that
Exactly.
system. And
Yes.
um, I've always liked people who have hacked their way through it. Um, did the minimums that were required to
Exactly.
somehow satisfy, or at least prevent excessive disappointment at home.
Yes.
And then the moment they were out, they were so out that there was there was no thought of going back to it at all. But
True.
then, as you said, that's quite rare. Most
Yes.
people end up being completely subscribed to the idea of schooling, and then whatever label that brings with them,
True.
um, you know, a
And it is being
failure or a winner.
advertised.
Yeah,
All this has been
exactly.
advertised, it's been pushed, it's being shown as the one way out of drudgery and physical labor, which is abhorred by everybody in today's world. So I think everybody just wants to, consume. They don't see the role of production as a necessary event anymore. So वो तो हो जाता है, no? That will happen, and I'm not the one to do it. I don't want to do it.
The beautiful middle class, uh, our colonial hangover of creating a middle class, it
And
continues to be the
also the
ultimate
elite.
aim for
Also the
most people.
elite. I mean,
Yeah.
finally, everybody who is in the middle class wants to become an elite.
Yes,
So
uh,
that is the
it's a
ladder
stepping stone.
that we have that's been hung in front of us, and
Yeah.
we are tempted to climb it.
I wonder, I mean, at an individual level, I feel that the way we experienced education was, okay, you have to go through it. This is gonna probably get you a job. This is gonna get you a certificate, and so on and so on. And then very much later, when I started seeing education from the other side of people who organize education, who are responsible for it, administrators, governments, uh, big body institutions, they were telling a completely different story. They were not talking at that individual level. They were talking at the collective level, at the large scale of solving human society problems through education. And I found that quite strange that if at the big level it was about solving problems, how come in my classroom we were not talking about that? So, what do you feel about this? That well, first of all, where is this coming from? This idea that okay, all the problems we see, economic, social, that we will beat all of them if we get more people educated. What's the source of this thought process?
I feel somewhere in this whole system, the arrogance of the human being has a huge role to play because we have had the uh, unfortunate uh, decision of separating ourselves from nature. And therefore, we believe that everything can be solved by the way we think. And that thought obviously is kind of lodged in our greed, and that's where all this is coming from. We don't want to we've stopped understanding processes. See, I think traditionally all societies educated themselves. They educated themselves directly by observing nature. They understood the processes and they knew how to align and to remain within the rhythm of nature. Whereas once we separated ourselves from nature, we played ourselves out completely, and we saw nature as the means to fulfill our personal gain, only as a resource. And I think once you look at nature only as a resource and your thinking ability as um the way to find a solution, then you get stuck in this kind of a paradigm where you feel that you can think through everything, but in nature it doesn't work.
That's an excellent point of view. I also feel that there is um, that somehow this oversimplification that okay, just put more kids into the primary school and there you will not have casteism anymore, or you will not have your economic problems anymore, or you will not have climatic issues anymore. You just have to educate people. And I used to hear this a lot of times that that it's the people who are uneducated, those are the ones who are causing all of these problems. So therefore, if you were educated, you would not cause these problems. You would not contribute to global problems. And I mean, I think I might have believed it at some point when I was a child, but then as I grew, I felt that my less educated or uneducated grandmothers were contributing much less to these problems than than myself or my educated friends. Um, Another time, I was taking a cab from in Bangalore from Magrath Road, and uh, unfortunately, the guy who bought the Uber, he stopped in front of somebody's house. So this guy comes up, he parks his bike right in front of the cab, and he starts screaming at this guy, and he's telling him, uh, "Are you illiterate? Are you uneducated?" He's screaming at him and saying, "Oh, you must be uneducated to do something like this, to park in front of my house." Right? And he's so aggressive and so, I mean, he's almost frothing at his mouth. And the guy, I don't know if he's uneducated or whatever, but he's calm and collected. The driver is trying to apologize. Yeah, I had no other way. It's a crowded street. I'm sorry. And in that moment, I'm thinking, well, who's the educated person here? What's who's the problem and who's the solution? Have you felt this way that maybe this idea of solutioning just doesn't fit the profile or the person we become after education?
Yes, definitely. And see, the kind of schooling system or what you call education system present right now actually increases the competitiveness of people and thereby reduces the tolerance level, increases the violence, and reduces our ability to see and understand what is happening around us. So we don't take time. We're swift to judge and we just, act. I think it is a system that is creating reactivity in people. It just makes people react because we are all the time stressed and all the time in this mode of competition. We just have to do it fast. Whereas a real education system should make you proactive. It should make you take a step back, look at the situation, analyze it, and then respond. You know, that would be a really educated human being. And that is why I say that traditionally, all traditional societies and even in villages, people are more educated because they do not jump to conclusions like this. They give space and time, which we don't have. And this has been taken away from us by the present schooling system. What is the need for so many subjects? What do you want me to do? You want me to learn to read and write, a little bit of numbers. But why do we have this division of subjects very early in life? क्यों होता है? I think it is kind of designed to make it seem very oppressive, and so that you get fear. Okay, I have to do so much, and therefore you start working on that. That means that you get stressed, you get impatient, you get aggressive and violent. It's built into the system. If all you wanted to do was help me to learn to read and write so that I can take informed decisions, you would do it differently.
Indeed. I think yes, it should come as no surprise to anyone that that the system of schooling relies heavily on fear, in the absence of which, of course, uh, you would feel that there would be chaos, there would be anarchy, there would be all of this. I still remember when when we started our very first learning space, very first no, there used to be parents who used to come sometimes to drag their children out, and while they would be waiting, they would tell me sometimes that, "Hey, why don't you scream at my children? Why don't you, sometimes beat them, make them, that will keep them straight, that will keep them disciplined." Uh, and this idea that, without fear, that there could not possibly be growth or learning. Um, and that's so perpetuated that everybody believes it, from parents to teachers and so on. Um, but nobody benefits from it. Like when I see the system as a system, from at all these different levels, I struggle to see who's benefiting. It's not the children who are benefiting from a fear-based environment like this. Surely they're not solving any problems, because you can't be living on fear and then expected to be solving problems. Uh, the teachers don't seem to be benefiting either. So who's winning here? Who's who's the one that benefits from a system like that?
So I think uh, what I have concluded is that the system itself is benefiting from all of this. Because as long as you can keep people fearful, you can control. So it is passed on from the system to the enforcers of the system itself. And that comes down finally to the child. So it means that if the system has to continue to survive, it has to instill fear. And the fear is also useful when they want to later on produce, employ, and even terminate people. The fear is the element that helps them to control. And the sooner you get used to it, the better it is. So that's why it trickles down to the pre KG classrooms.
Yeah.
And in fact, even to the home environment where the parents see, from what I have observed, children are born completely fearless, completely non judgmental, completely able to live in the present moment, you know. And I think these are the aspects that we all admire in Buddhas and, all these seers.
Uh,
But here we have in our arms a complete Buddha, but we don't see it like that. We want to civilize that Buddha and make sure that they are afraid, that they are able to discern, and in that process we put in the fear and we put in judgment, and then we also make sure that through the way we train them, we make sure that they become very entrenched in the fact that I have to fight for a life. Because life is something that just flows. The abundance that a child feels at birth is slowly eroded. And it is eroded maybe consciously, I don't know. But if it is being eroded unconsciously, then we can do something about it. If it is being eroded consciously, then we cannot, because then we are fighting much bigger ideas.
yeah.
So that is where the challenge is. If it is an unintentional kind of a thing, then we can educate parents and we can say that, allow your child to be, follow the child. That's what we try to do in our kind of learning spaces, Learn from the child. The child has more to teach than to learn. Learn how to be fearless instead of trying to, put your fears and insecurities into the child. But if it is a system that is being perpetuated by will, which is dominated by finances, then we are lost.
Yeah, unfortunately, it seems quite grim, because, um, again, the reconciliation between the the individual experience versus the collective promise. Right? So the individual level again, this idea that okay, one day you'll grow up, you get a job, you'll be free and happy. Of course, doesn't work out. That's not true. That's already a lie. Then the collective promise that okay, education with education we will solve. Educated people will solve all the problems of the planet. Again, uh, that's something we say, but then we teach the exact opposite of that in the classrooms. We teach fear. We teach people to think only about themselves. We take them away from their communities. We isolate them, and then, of course, the it cannot be expected that they will solve problems. Except if they rebel against that attitude as opposed to because of it. So neither of these two things seem to be true. Um, and then one is forced to ask this question then again: who benefits? Who wins in this situation? By lying at both levels, by lying at the individual level at home, by lying at the collective level, then maybe the only people who benefit are the people who are able to, I don't know, hire people after people, education is over, are able to use them to create economic gain, are able to tell them that they are not worth anything more than the cubicle that they are offered inside a big glass building, are told that they cannot do anything else in life except go through a terrible work environment and toxicity, um, and that is normal somehow. That this is all
Yes.
what it means to be an adult. And, that as an adult you must accept this toxicity, you must accept this unhappiness. uh, Almost feels to me that school is nothing but a training program for that trains you to be unhappy for the rest of your life. So it makes you ultimately, it
Yes.
makes you accept it that yes, I will be unhappy and that's okay. Because if you
True.
didn't, then that would be quite problematic. uh, and I feel I realized this quite late or quite recently. But um, like if you want to teach a child, if the promise that my parents were making when I was a kid, that one day you'll be happy and one day you'll be free, realize that if you want me to learn how to be happy and free, then wouldn't you teach me by making me experience it when I was a young kid, not by keeping me away from it? That you don't learn to be something one day by staying away from it. You learn by experiencing it,
Being.
practicing it, trying it, failing at it a few times, and then one day you are ready. Uh, but this is quite the opposite. It's more like the Indian marital system. Don't talk to a girl for your entire young life, and then suddenly be married, and then you'll be happy. You're supposed to be in love. This is feels completely an antithesis. Uh, but thank God that there are there are there are a few places of refuge, and I would really love for you to talk a little bit about Puvidham and what is the approach you are taking, and how does that feel to be that one space surrounded by an overall education philosophy that is exactly what we talked about so far, right? So, how has been your journey? What has been your approach? And how are you pushing against this mammoth and large educational narrative that doesn't seem to be very positive?
So actually, this idea that you will be happy later was explored in a wonderful story by R.K. Lakshman long back. I'm sure you would have read that story, where there is this young fisherman who's always lying down under the tamarind tree as the educated man goes to work and comes back, and he sees this guy every day just under the tamarind tree by the lake. And finally, he gets frustrated because, I'm working so hard, and here this guy is just lazing around, and what the hell is he doing with his life? So he goes up to him one afternoon and asks him, "What are you doing?" So he's like, "I'm waiting for the fish to get hooked onto my line." So he's like, "What?" He says, "Yeah, I'm fishing." So he tells him, like, "What's the use? I mean, how many fish do you catch like this?" So I catch about 4 to 5 fish, and that's quite enough. You know, we have two, and then we give the others to the rest of our family, and we are doing well. So this person tells him that, you know, you can really do a lot more. All you need is a maybe a net, and then you can catch more fish. Then this guy like, then what will I do with those fish? Then he says, no, but then you can sell it, and then what? Then you can buy a boat, and then you can go into the middle of the lake, and then catch more fish,
Mhm.
and then it goes, and then finally he tells him, but and then what? You'll be very happy living in a beautiful mansion. And then this guy tells him, you know what? I'm very happy right
Happy.
now. So I
Exactly.
think that is the uh, narrative that we are all uh, being told, that this is not enough. Whereas enough is a part of all egalitarian communities. When they know that this is enough, I don't want more, you know. And the system, it teaches you that nothing is enough. You can't be so non-competitive, have no aspirations. All these things, success, all these things are built up to such volumes that if you're not doing something, you feel that you're doing a crime, by not not being part of this. And I think the one thing that uh, I learned is that it is very important to be enough, to be enough in myself, and to be able to say that this is enough for me. This is actually the concept of minimalism that is coming back right now, which is what Gandhi ji, more than 100 years ago, he said, everybody should learn to say enough. This is quite good for me. And we should learn to set our own limits. And we have to set our limits by the limits that we see around us. We can't set our limits, far ahead of everybody else. But that is what our education system teaches us. To set our limits, goals, whatever. Just keep going, and not seeing where you're coming from, and not even knowing where you're going to. So this kind of an environment that I was also brought up in, and I think I kind of managed to sidestep, because I read books by Gandhi ji, like his Experiments with Truth, and his philosophy of the minimum that you need is quite enough. And what I was inspired to do was to experiment with my life. It's like his book on my experiments with truth kind of ends with the thing that this is not something that if a man of such a stature and such a background can do it, so can you. And that was like it was literally a spark within me. It said that, yeah, I mean, you got one life. Why don't you experiment with it? What is the point in wasting doing what everybody else is doing? You already know what they are doing, and you see no meaning in it. So why do you want to do it? Kuch alag karo. It doesn't matter. Do something that you feel you want to do. And I felt all the time that, at least I don't want to send my children through this torture that I went through. That was my actually my only aim. And the other one was that, living in Mumbai, I was born and brought up in Mumbai. I had seen the extreme poverty, as well as the extreme, and I would say it's kind of a, yeah, extravagance. It hurts to see it. Even seeing these two, I felt something needs to be done about this, and change this, the way that people are treating each other, humans are treating other humans. And where does it start? And I said, okay, it is the education system. So at least I don't want my children to go through this education system. And that made me leave the city in search of something more meaningful. And I came to Oroville. I spent a couple of years there, and even there, I saw the disparity, and that again, disillusioned me. And I felt maybe it doesn't exist. Maybe there is no kind of a society where you can be equal, where you can be, respectful of everybody and everything. But why not try? And that was the search that is it possible to create a community where children are equal human beings as everybody else, and humans are equal life as everything else. So with that in mind, we bought this land in Dharmapuri, and of course we had our financial means were very small, so we could only buy a wasteland. But for me, the thing was, the only thing free I had was time and the physical energy. I have two hands and two strong feet, and I can definitely do something. Money I don't have, but I have the energy and the will. And that's what we started with. We started with soil conservation, regeneration, planting indigenous forests. And then 8 years down the line, our children were there, and we needed to think of some kind of an education thing. But by that time, I had been living, and our children, like my daughter was 5 when we started this, and I had seen that it's not that they are not learning. Every day they are learning what is needed to be learned. Like you need to learn how to conserve soil. You need to learn how to make sure your water is there, because these are the basic things that
Yeah.
I need in life. If I don't know anything about them, then what is the point? And especially in all the crisis that we are facing today, if I'm lost, if suddenly something happens, every child should know how to regenerate.
Yeah.
So I felt that this was what needed to be learned, and a little bit of um, reading, writing, literacy, and numbers. So our perspective of what a child needs to know was like, you need to know to read and write, and what better way than stories? So you get into stories, and children like to sing and dance. So you know the nursery rhymes, I used to get a little kind of a chill, whenever I used to hear them. So meaningless. So we kind of arrived at songs that we wrote about the elements. So our education system, or whatever that we follow at Puvidham, is based on the five elements.
Mm.
And in each element we have tried to include the concepts, because yeah, I mean, finally you have to uh, plug in at like at the age of 14. I was told, now you decide what you want to do. You want to go away from this system and do something else, or you want to get in. So we take the children up to the age of 14, and there we do the same thing that my dad did to me. Now you have the choice. Abhi tum choose karo. You can just go through it and come out and see what you want to do with your life. So till then, you only need to have a space where you're safe, where you're completely happy, where you feel completely capable, and where you're not being judged. So that means there can be no examination. There has to be a lot of physical work, because you have to learn how to create. You have to know how to create everything that you need from scratch, because we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So I want you to be capable to make sure that you will survive. If you are alive, you will survive. And then, the happiness is part of every child. Like you were saying, teach me happiness. I mean, this is stupid. I'm born happy, just let me be. Bas. And I will be continue to be happy.
Yeah.
If you are going to teach me happiness, then I'm going to become very unhappy, because it is my state of being. It cannot be taught. So that is our very clear agenda, that we create a space where children are self-reliant and are actually in awe of physical labor. So we are very much into the concept of bread labor, which Gandhiji talked about, which Tolstoy talked about. And so our school is actually work based education. You call it work based because you can't call it play based, because then it sounds very weird. But actually the work is like play for a child. It's not like if you're going to go and collect some herbs and some vegetables from your garden. Yes, you would have to go and dig and plant them in the first place. You can't say, I only want to collect. So they understand the processes, and therefore the digging is not hard work, because they know that the fruits are going to come. So it's all part of the processes that they have observed in nature, and it becomes a part of themselves. They also, you learn patience,
Yeah.
you learn the produce, of hard labor, and you learn to respect labor. And this is what I feel is completely lacking in the world today. We, none of us are happy to, make our hands dirty, work with the soil. And I feel that's where all our problems lie. Because if we are going to have a class of people who's going to produce and a class of people who are going to consume, then we will always have the same, it doesn't matter education or no education or whatever. So the problem is not with the education, the problem is with the way we have distanced ourselves from production, from creation itself. As human beings, the only difference that we can claim to have from all the other animals, all this other sixth sense business, I really don't subscribe to. I believe the only real difference is that we can create an environment that we want, that we can observe and we can imitate nature. And we know that nature takes maybe 300 years to create 1 centimeter of topsoil, whereas we can create compost in 3 months. So we have the ability of creation. It's just that we have chosen to be destructive. So now we can choose to be creative. And to be able to create, we have to use our physical energy. There is nothing else that we are born with. Our 2 hands and our body. This is our tool. And we don't learn to use it, then I think our whole life is useless. So that is what we do at Puvidham. We
Excellent.
glorify labor.
That's awesome. Have you ever felt, well, again, from our own experiences, and I've heard this time and again, where the expectation sometimes from parents, even if they're sending their kids to a very alternative environment, is that the kids are extremely busy, that they are sort of, they expect a little bit of over organization, whereas I mean, I think Jinan puts it very nicely, right? That let them be, give them space, and a lot of the learning is happening there, not because you are interfering or organizing every little thing for them. Have you felt this push a little bit sometimes from parents, from others, for over organizing?
Actually, our children are very busy
Yeah.
because they are living life. You know, at school and in our own houses, our day begins at 4:30 in the morning. Like say in the hostel there, like right now it's a completely residential school. We used to have partly residential before corona, but then now we said no, we'll go completely residential because many of the local village people are now their aspirations are very different. We talk about sustainable living to them and they look at us like, I think we are very sustainable already, you don't talk to us about this. So it is a total incongruous situation to talk to them about sustainable living because their aspirations are to reach the city. So we stopped, to send our vehicles to bring the children from the local community. Whoever wants to, they bring their children on their own will. We do not advertise. The interview with the parent is very clear. We say that we do not indulge in academics at all. If at all your child manages to learn to read and write, it is only because of his or her own interest. We do not subscribe to academics. Our belief is that as long as you have learned to take care of yourself, learned love, compassion, empathy, and understood the principles of equality and the processes in nature, you will be a good human being. So you will be a good, whatever you become, you'll be good. And that good is what is important for us. So we kind of discourage them. We say like, this is not the school for you. If you're looking for marks, if you're looking for academics, if you're looking for all this is not the school for you. So then they have to convince us that yeah, this is actually the kind of place I want. I don't want my children to have exams. So it ends up that we make ourselves very clear, and so the parents do not have these kind of pressures on us. And we very clearly, another very important aspect is we make sure that the parents stay on campus 2 days. So we call it return to the soil. It's a workshop for all parents who want to admit their children into Puvidham. 2 days they stay, they live the life, they do the work, physical and everything. And then they decide whether they want their child to go through it or not. It doesn't matter if we have one student, but we don't want to have parents who are, going to keep on twisting us the other way. So we make our field very clean. This is what we are doing. And if you have 100% alignment, yes. If you don't, thank you. You may, go to any other school, because there are plenty of other schools. So this is one thing. And what we have found is that actually what children parents have also told us, children are so busy. They wake up at 4:30. Some of them do the cooking, others do their yoga and reading time and whatever. 6 o'clock, they all go to the garden. Some of them start cleaning up. By 8 o'clock, all this basic cleaning up, self care is done, and then they're getting their breakfast and packing it for their lunch, and then coming to school. When they are in school, first thing they have to clean the campus. Teachers and all, we're all together, but we all have to clean the campus first. We don't have any dedicated staff for any one of these activities. After that, we have a nice break. So, we have a nice break. It's a fruit break or some snack is there. We all chit chat and decide what we want to do today. So it's, and then that time, like from 10:30 to 3, which is the hottest time of the day. We don't want to be outside in the sun, so we do something indoors. And even that is mostly, so we have 3 hours of reading and writing if somebody wants to do. If they don't want to do, we don't push them. It's your choice. You can learn to do stitching, you can do upcycling of cloth, you can do carpentry, you can do origami, you can just sit and just look, or just go climb a tree and be there. There is no compulsion on what you should do. This time is completely yours. But you should not disturb the others. That's the only condition. You can't, pluck the leaves of the tree and keep scattering them away, because that's a living thing. The respect for everything that you're engaging with is very important. And if you're outside the class and somebody is reading inside, then you can't go screaming and shouting, because that's interfering with somebody else's freedom and peace of mind. So, with very basic, these simple rules, children slowly learn to take an interest in their own well-being, and they decide that, yeah, reading and writing, if I learn it, it's going to be good for me. And so they come back to it, and they ask us, okay, why don't you teach me? I want to learn to read and write. Okay, if you want to learn, then you're here, we will be there. But it's not imposed, and there is no examination, and there is no judgment passed, or there is no scorn for people who are not reading and writing. So there may be a 14-year-old who doesn't know his abcd, and it's okay, perfectly fine, because he's quite capable at other things, and everybody sees this. And there may be a child who has physical issues, emotional issues, psychological issues, or even some kind of disability. uh, all of that is accepted as a normal phenomena in a society. We are not all equals. All five fingers are not of the same length. And this space and tolerance and empathy, I would call it, that is part of the everyday life of the child. So those are the more important things. Those are the more important learnings, and
That's so
everything else
beautiful.
happens.
It's really beautiful. I loved what you said, that they're quite busy living and working. I mean, not necessarily busy with sessions and trainings, and instead just busy living their life. And I think that's a pretty good teacher.
They're
And
busy with themselves.
yeah, and I think you've really designed a very, very nice learning environment around that. And if we come back to thinking about what will solve the problems that, I mean, all of these promises that have been made uh, by many people, but ultimately, I do see that, I think, to be able to solve any of the problems, to be able to create a world we imagine we would like to have, we have to have tasted it. We have to have felt we have lived a good life.
Exactly.
we have to have felt that we have, you can't suddenly one day build something beautiful. You have to experience some of that beauty. And I think you're just doing a pretty phenomenal job of that. So yeah, congratulations. It's really, really lovely. And thank you
I
for
think
sharing
actually
this.
this is the least effort.
Yeah, yeah,
You don't need to do anything,
yeah,
you know. It happens.
yeah.
And I think all solutions are easy. Problem is that we like complicated things.
Complicating. I think it makes us nervous if it is not complex enough. um,
Yeah.
I've actually felt, yeah, I've had friends who live in really nice farms and beautiful environments, and the kids are taking care of cows, and they're planning their day. But the parents sometimes still get very nervous that uh, I need to find things to do for my kids. Honestly, they have enough things to do, and when they don't, they are figuring out other things to do in that time. They're figuring out, books to read or things to build. Um, it's the idea that a child will waste time. Uh, it's such an adult idea with an adult lens that first of all, what is wasting here, and that the child will do it. The child is not trying to escape anything. Whereas, yeah, adults we can say they try to waste time because they're trying to escape all the time that they have already spent in 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 extremely harmful environments. So there I see it. But children always figure things out. I never had toys, for example, when I was a kid. I I played with everything. The whole house was a toy. I never had this concept that you have toys. I only figured it out. I think I must have been 11 or something when I saw in some of my friends' house that they have like lots of stuff in their cupboard. I'm like, what are these things? Toys. I'm like, okay. I went back home. I'm like, why don't have toys? Why don't I have toys? Like, I don't have Hot Wheels and dolls and whatnot. Just everything. I was playing with pressure cookers and nothing wrong with that. So yes, doing too much, I think, is a great moral for today. Do you need to do too much, or is it actually that we need to do less um, to create the right learning environment, which eventually will hopefully solve some of the biggest problems. Before we close for today, Meenakshi, a lot of people who will listen to you will be people who are kind of in between. They are, on one hand, they understand that schools are not benefiting their children, but on the other, they are also struggling to find what else, what do we do? And there's only so many Puvidhams and so many existing spaces. So, do you have something you would want to tell them, or you want to share with them? Where should they start?
Okay, so this is another. Uh, I can't get the word, but yeah, it's a folly. That we feel that we need a good child, a good school for our child. You know, like my father used to say, there is no good school. There is only the effort of the child that makes the school good or bad. So I would say it is the family environment finally that decides how a child goes through the school. The school is not bad. Okay, there are some systems which are bad. Okay, there are, like these examinations and all that are quite stressful. But they become stressful only because of the parents. Like, it was not stressful for me. I just went through them. When my dad went for the parents teacher meeting and the teacher said your daughter is this, that, everything, all that
Download.
insult was poured on his head. He would just say, yeah, she's a child. She's a child. She will go out of it. She'll grow out of it. That's it. And he never reprimanded us, never say, look, because of you, I had to listen to all this. And why are you like this? Kabhi nahi, never. And I think that is what adults today need to realize, that it's not what uh, they expect of their child that is a problem. It is how they express it that it is a problem. So you can expect, if you want your child to be happy and to be able to do something positively, yes, send them to the nearest school so that they go. Don't try to keep them at home. If the child says, I don't want to go to school, then the child is at home. But then it's not your job anymore to engage the child, because who decided not to go to school? You. You have to engage yourself. And believe me, children have the capability of taking care of what they want to do. The other challenge is screen time. This is another thing, that if they are at home, they are only looking at screens. Make it not available. That is something that we can do. We can make sure that it's not available. Make sure that you spend a lot more time with your child in a natural environment than in trying to earn money to send her to grade school. Send her to the local government school. I tell people this, it's free.
Hmm.
And that is one space where we can still have a say. We can go and tell, if the teacher is scolding your child or scolding you, you can say, it's okay, anyway, it's not your responsibility, it's fine. I will not ask you why my child has not got so many marks. And if people like us who see this whole system as a tunnel that we have to walk through, then what is our problem? भेजो ना कहीं भी. Just send them there. Keep the value system at your home very clear. Make sure that you are not doing what you should not be doing, or what you don't want your child ever to do. If you don't want your child to use the phone too much, make sure that you have limited your time. Okay, look, for 1 hour I'm right now on the phone. Then okay, for half an hour the child can be on the phone. What am I looking? What am I doing on the phone? I'm working. So what the child should be doing? Okay, you can maybe find out some information, maybe look at a story, or something like that. So we can then, if we maintain discipline of what we do, we can inspire discipline in a child. If we make sure that the child is making the decisions whether they want to go to school or don't want to go to school, then we can also make sure that the child is deciding how to engage itself. The responsibility is not ours anymore. And I think our children are quite capable of completely taking care of what they want to do. They are quite responsible. They are very responsible. Allow them to partake in the household chores, household activities. Usko chores क्यों बोलते हैं? I don't even know. So most important activity, living, cooking, cleaning. Let them do. Let them participate in everyday life. Let them understand your financial obligations. Let them know what you go through at work. Share, dialogue. Treat them as equal. Don't talk down to a child. Expect from them the kind of responsibility that you can take, because they're capable of it. I've seen it.
Hmm.
So I feel every child can have the
Yeah.
best education at home if the parents are really educated.
Yeah. Ultimately, you are your child's first school. That will never change. Every other school is going to be second. Um, and you can either see your child experience it um, as a means to an end, or as a thing to subscribe to, or you can help them hack through it. But ultimately, uh, yeah, you are going to be your child's first school. That is
And the first inspiration, you know. See, children, from what I have observed, they don't learn by instruction.
no, they don't do
They
what you
learn by
say.
inspiration. They are inspired. And if you can be the inspiration, then what more do you want? So, what all parents have to do is to work on themselves and to allow the child to work on itself. If I'm not able to work on myself, if I don't trust my intuition, I don't trust my own thought processes, how will I allow a child to trust its intuition and allow that thought process to blossom? नहीं हो सकता ना. So
Absolutely.
the work needs to be done on the self, and
Uh,
everybody is capable of doing it. We just have to decide.
no, to me, this is always a very funny thought that, when I was a child, my mom would push me to go, Abhijit, dance with all the other kids, during these New Year parties, and go dance. And then I would never see them dancing. They would not be the ones who would
Ah,
go along and dance with people. So I would always be like, why do you tell me to dance? You don't want to dance yourself. children will always do what you do and not what you say. It is
Exactly.
the oldest truth, and we forget it sometimes.
All the
On
time,
that
actually.
on that wonderful note, Meenakshi, you have been such an amazing guest. So happy that we did this, and hopefully you'll come again, and we will talk more in detail, yeah, thorns to pick from the educational drama. Yeah, but it was really lovely and beautiful to speak to you. Thank you
Thank you.
so
Thank you
so
for the
much.
opportunity.